No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about work-life balance.
Ah, okay.
We've talked about it before, but I want to talk about it in the context of something that I've been noticing recently, and that's that I get a lot of people reaching out through people who listen to the show talking about their work-life balance and complaining about it from one of 2 standpoints, and they seem to be at odds with each other, and I'm trying to kind of rectify how this works, and I think we can work this out here. I get some people that reach out and say, how do I deal with this? I like my job, but I feel like I'm always working. I feel like my boss is always reaching out to me, even when I'm not at work. I have a hard time being able to say that I'm in the middle of family stuff right now. If my phone rings, I look at it and I see it's somebody from work, and I have this stress in me, like what am I going to go through if I don't answer right now? But what am I doing to myself if I do answer again? And that's one type of email I get. The other type I get is I feel like my hands are tied because I'm in these multi-collaborative projects and I'm working for a company who values work-life balance so much that I actually can get in trouble for reaching out to an employee when they're not at work. And it's making me feel like I'm handcuffed to get the projects done I need to get done. And I look at both as like, well, the grass is always greener, right? I bet one of these people would love the other person's experience for a week or two. But it got me thinking about how a lot of organizations, they skip the leadership part of work-life balance, and instead they try to give a policy regarding work-life balance or what the expectation is. Do you see this in the organizations you've worked for? First of all, as far as, you see this list of policies that try to dictate when you're supposed to work or not work, and how do you think we can navigate this in terms of a leadership lens?
Sure. Well, for the examples you gave, for the first person, I would say, welcome to Salaried Retail Leadership 101.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Like your life to a degree can be attached to your mobile device, attached to your hip constantly. Sure. And I get it. And I think a lot of salary jobs, I just say retail because that's, obviously a lot of my experience, but many salaried jobs, that's a part of that type of work, is that you're accessible, you're reachable. That's kind of the expectation. And while I do believe that is changing currently, that's been around for a really long time. I think to the second scenario you gave, kudos, because I think that, what you're asking me is organizations, I believe, really only have one way as a larger collective to try to address this. And when I hear work-life balance, usually what I think of is like people want to it's like hours, you know what I mean? Like hours committed to work versus hours committed to life. Right. And really the only person that I believe that would have any kind of real beef within the hours segment of that are people that are on salary. Because a part of that negotiation when you're on salary is that you do have access to everything. You are, accessible most of all the time. You can work from home with technology and, and systems and that type of deal. When it comes to people that are not on salary saying work-life balance, what I hear is something different. What I hear is maybe a lack of some elements of either prioritization, or maybe they're a little bit lost, or maybe they're a little bit in a space where they don't, it's kind of like they feel like they want to follow a passion, but then kind of the days that they want to follow the passion are the days they're supposed to be at work, and they run across some of these types of things. So, to answer your question, the organizations I've worked with, and I've seen it different ways. I've seen it where the experience that you and I had together, which is you have collective salaried managers and many of them on one team, sure, to the different organizations where there's very few people that are on salary. The vast majority are hourly. And so I personally have had to lead differently in both of those environments in my career because it requires a different level of leadership and a different style of leadership when you are trying to get things done and you are maybe limited by a policy. And again, those policies, store to store, district to district, market to market, state to state can feel a little bit different.
Yeah, there's a lot of there are a lot of laws that people have to be cognizant of too. and that's fine. If you're in a place where there are laws going on that dictate how you're supposed to act, obviously you want to follow the laws. Thinking back to our experience together, 15 years ago, I remember people on our team who at 10 after 5, they'd start getting antsy. They'd start looking at their watch going, when are we done yet? And it's because we were on salary and we were working together to get some of this work done. But some of the best work we got done sometimes was at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Now, if you're in an environment where you don't enjoy what you're doing, then any minute you're there past what you think is a normal workday is going to feel like agony to you. And if you're in an environment where you love what you're doing, it's probably not as arduous a task to be expected to work a little bit longer hours sometimes. When a lot of these people reaching out, though, are not salary people. They're hourly people. And so aside from the fact that there are laws in place, I kind of want to talk about how the balance works in terms of a leadership lens for what the best way is to make sure that you are respecting the work-life balance of your employees, that you don't ever feel like, or that no employee ever feels like they're being asked to work without getting paid, and which if you're an hourly employee, you should never feel like you're being asked to work without getting paid. But on the flip side, there are multi-unit teams and multi-person teams and collaborative efforts across multiple teams that might be comprised of hourly people. And in those situations, there can be situations where people feel like their hands are tied, like they can't do anything, they can't get any work done. And it's not because the person who's not there needs to come in for 8 hours to work in order to get the work done. It's, oh my gosh, there was this question that I don't see in the notes anywhere. I don't see in the emails anywhere, and this is the only person who has the answer. Well, should I reach out to them? Can that person answer a phone call to answer the question? I mean, there is no one right answer, and that's what I'm saying is I think there's a leadership element here where where this problem can't be solved by policy. It can't be solved by the company coming in and saying, this is what you should do. Because every situation is different, and how the employee feels their relationship is with their employer and with their teammates can go a long way. I know people who are hourly employees who, if they got back to work after being off for a week and they found out that a project they were on literally came to a halt, where it didn't have to come to a halt, if somebody just called them 6 days earlier to ask a single question, they'd feel bad. They'd be like, why didn't you guys just call me and ask? You know, and their response would be, to their credit, their response would be, well, you weren't working. And I get it. I get it. If that's what the relationship is, then that's what it is. But I think a lot of people, they don't try to finesse that relationship to what it should be. They don't try to find that balance that says we need to make sure that no employee ever feels like they can't put their phone down. We need to make sure that no employee feels like they don't ever feel like they're hurting their own career or their own career prospects by deciding not to pick up the phone, or by saying, you know what, I'm done for a week. I'm actually done. But on the flip side, we need to make it so that employees who are working don't feel like their hands are tied and that they can't make an effort. And how do you do that without creating policy that says, I mean, this is all gray. There's no black and white answer here.
Yeah, no, that's what I was about to say. It's exactly what I was going to say. It's all gray, right? Like, to your point, there are laws, there are things that, you have to be conscious of as a leader, specifically in regards to, when people work and whether they're, at their job or at their home and that type of thing. I think that over time, as you were talking, I was thinking about, like, how do I handle this? Because it happens from time to time. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you have leadership teams that are, that are consisted of hourly people, which is, a unique environment. But at the same time, there are these things that happen. There are some things that can happen that may have a loss prevention standpoint, or it could be an employee relations issue, or there could be things that happen where that person is not there that day and they are technically not working, right? And I think that as I was thinking about some of these examples from time to time, as a leader, I tend to lead by asking permission, and I tend to do it via text message, right? Because I think that in this day and age with communication, saying, hey, Chris, I know you're off today, so sorry to bug you. If you get a minute, let me know if you've got time. I want to ask you about this situation, or blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of like, I'm going to put the entire bit of control into your hands, respecting the fact that you are not at work, respecting the fact that you're off, but also giving you more context than, hey, when you get a second, call me, right? Like, here's what I'm working on, here's what I'm dealing with, here's the situation. And your response could simply have been, hey, no problem. That's what I said. Or yes, this is what, then I can say thank you, right? So it is a 10-second, 15-second response potentially. Or maybe you say, cool, I'll call you in 10 minutes. You call, we talk for 2 minutes. We have an answer, we can move it forward. So I do my absolute best to respect anybody who is not working. But at the same time, sometimes, the business and our people require, a little bit of immediacy in an answer. And you kind of have to figure that out as a leader. But I think, but of course, if somebody says, if I'm going to call you or ask you to do something knowing that you're off and I need you to do something, I'm going to say, hey, would you mind putting in an hour or two or whatever to get this done? Please let me know your time. We'll document it, because if it's official work, I want people to get paid for official work, especially if it's at my request. But I think it is a lot of gray area, and it is a lot about relationships. It just bugs the heck out of me when people feel like, to your point earlier, if you would have just called me, if you would have just asked me, if you would just give me a heads up, or if you would have let me know, hey, when you get in tomorrow, right, X, Y, and Z is happening, or I want you to be aware of this, or if you don't get email at home, you get it at work. I want you to know this is in your inbox, so that way you can even be a little bit more efficient when you get in. And I think that is also a sign of respect and relationship and trust, because you don't want to put somebody out there or have them hanging on something that they're not aware of that will be really impactful to their day.
Right. And I'm guessing that if you sent a text message to one of those people, like the example you gave, and you didn't get a response at all, your thought process wouldn't be F that guy, like right. you would assume the positive intent. You would assume that whatever that person was doing, they were unable to respond.
Yeah, I get it. Like I said, I understand it. Like I said, it is it boils down to relation. It's rare that people will not respond at all this day and age, because
right.
everybody's so attached to their devices.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't hold anything against anybody for not, because I get it. And if they say,
I don't mean ever. I don't mean ever. I meant for like several hours.
Yeah, exactly. And even in those times when that's happened, usually the response is people saying, hey, so sorry, I missed this, just saw it, here's what's going on. And I'm like, it's all good. It's all good.
Right. I would say that if an employee finds themselves in a situation where they receive a text message like the one you said, hey, I know you're off, so sorry to bother you. I had a quick question about this. Is this what happened? This is what I heard. Is this what happened? Or if you have 5 minutes or 2 minutes, can you give me a call? If the immediate thought in that employee's mind is, how dare this person? I'm not at work right now. To me, that implies they don't have a good relationship with their boss, their coworkers, or probably even their company. To me, that's what that implies. And and that's hard to say, because the black and white way of looking at it is, well, the employee's not working. Why should they be bothered, right? And that's where I think leadership really is important here, because this isn't something companies can define outside of what works for the relationship between people is what works. And it might be different. You might have, as a leader, 10 direct reports, and 7 out of the 10 you have that relationship with, where you can text them, you can have a 5-minute phone conversation with them, and they don't think anything of it, and they're happy to help. And if it goes longer than that, and they're an hourly person, then they document their time and they get paid for it. And then 3 of those 10 people might be the ones that are, maybe you still have an okay relationship with them, but they are very, very adamantly against that division, that blurred line between work and life if they're hourly, and they do not want to get work done when they're not at work. And I think there are employees who, because they want to have that line in the sand and they don't want to cross it, they take steps to make sure that they don't leave a wake that doesn't hurt their employees when their coworkers when they're gone. And so that person who is really adamant about that work-life balance, where they want to be able to disconnect completely, they don't want to even think about work when they're not at work, and that's okay too. That person has now a responsibility to make sure that whatever collaborative efforts they're working on, whatever projects they're working on, whatever things that they are doing that may not be finished when they're about to be off for a day or 2 days or a week or a month or whatever, that no one gets there to pick up where they left off and is unable to do that. And so those people have to develop really great communication and handoff skills, and pick places to stop working on whatever they're working on that become easy for their coworkers to pick up on. It doesn't work both ways. You can't draw that line in the sand and say, I'm never working when I'm not on the clock, and I'm not going to take steps to make sure that people can't pick up where I left off. That doesn't work. That just creates confusion and chaos, and typically those people don't have a lot of close relationships at work.
Great. And I think it's a great call out, and I can share with you something outside of even what we do. But like recently, I've been looking to purchase a vehicle, and I've been working with, a credit union that I worked with before in a car, and then some new deals. And of course, everybody wants your business. And
of course,
what I ran into, and this is a great example of that, as I was talking to somebody on the phone last Saturday that worked for this credit union, and they had made me an offer to, this car thing, and then somebody else maybe a different offer, and they asked this one question. And so I called them and I said, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what you offered me. I just want to know, can you also do this? And the person on the phone was like, I'm so sorry. The finance person is not going to be here. They don't work on the weekends. They won't be here till Monday. And I wish I could tell you, I believe the answer is yes, but I don't want to say anything officially because, yeah. And I'm like, but you understand that, I have somebody else on the phone over here, and they're telling me what the answer is, and they're willing to do that. And the person literally said, I know, I wish I could just text them and ask them because I know their response would be yes, but I cannot tell you that until Monday. And I said, so you understand that if I just go with this other bank? And they were like, I totally get it. It's unfortunate. That's our policy. Literally is what they said.
He said his policy was that he can't text the finance manager to ask the question?
That was what he said in context. Yes.
Right.
The policy is they're off.
Okay.
And I can't ask, right?
Sure.
And I said, okay, well, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then you know what happened on Monday? I got a phone call from them, and I said, thanks, but no thanks. I already took another deal. Because at the end of the day, the other person was also doing something that you could say is in the gray area, but they were willing to take that calculated risk knowing that that's the solution that I needed. And I appreciated that because if I need something else in the future, then I know who I want to have in my corner. And that's the person that's willing to go the extra mile and really make sure that I get the answers that I need immediately.
Right. But I think a lot of places and some leaders too they would listen to what you just said and think, why would you punish somebody for wanting to have a good work-life balance?
Right.
It's like, well,
right.
No, you're not punishing anybody. You're doing what you want to do as the customer, and the company that responds and meets you where you are is the one that gets your business. That is what it is. You're not mad at them.
No.
But you're also not going to dwell on it. You're going to move on.
And I would imagine this. If that person got a text on Saturday to ask this question and they responded yes, and then they got my business, then I bet you their check, the money they would have made on that, their bonus, and their life would have got a little bit better. Simply because they could have answered one simple question. So, yeah, it goes both ways. That you could say, well, yeah, they're off and that's how it is. But I don't know. If would I be willing to say yes in a text message to maybe get a bonus on a financing deal? Probably. Pretty much yes all the time. Absolutely. Because that is actually a part of my life as well. And I would like to see my balance of my checking account go up. You like how I did that there?
I did like that.
Life balance.
And I completely agree. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 minute hack.
The 1 minute hack.
Okay, for this episode's 1 minute hack, here's what I want to review real quick. There's an article in the businessnewsdaily.com, and we will put the link to the article in the show notes here so you can check it out yourself. But the article is titled 8 Ways to Improve Your Work-Life Balance Today. And there are 8 ways. I really want to talk about 2 of them that really I felt were relevant and made a lot of sense and kind of tied into what we discussed today on the show. One of them is accept that there is no perfect work-life balance. And it says, don't strive for the perfect schedule, strive for a realistic one. Some days you might focus more on work, while others you might have more time and energy to pursue your hobbies or spend time with your loved ones. Balance is achieved over time, not each day. I really, really like that, and I think it's so true, and it pulls me back to some advice I got from a peer of mine about 8 years ago, and she said, just be in the moment. And if when you're at work, be in the moment at work, and when you're at home with your family, be in the moment at home with your family. And that was the advice she gave me, just around balancing work and life. And I think the other one that really resonated with me was prioritize your health. Your overall physical, emotional, and mental health should be your main concern. If you struggle with anxiety or depression and think therapy would benefit you, fit those sessions into your schedule, even if you have to leave work early or miss an evening spin class. I really like this because it even talks about overworking yourself prevents you from getting better, possibly causing you to take more days off in the future. So just this idea around making sure that when you come to work, you're in the best place possible for yourself, and you're able to show up as the best version of yourself. I think that's critical, and I think it's something that regardless of how hard the job is, how many hours you're working, if you're not thinking about putting yourself first and foremost, then are you really actually getting anything out of all the extra work that you're doing?
I think it's a fantastic 1 minute hack, and I love this article. And I would say there's another one on there that I want to touch on that I think is a fantastic part. And this is my favorite one: is find a job that you love. If you are the type of person, if you find yourself, if you find yourself in this situation, this means that you have a job that you love, and you have a good priority, a good that kind of priority set here. You get a text message from somebody you work with, and you're doing something with your family, and you feel comfort in knowing that you're not responding because you're spending time with your family and you're not going to take time to work. If that is you, but yet you also are that same person sitting on the couch watching TV doing nothing, and you get the text message and you feel compelled to respond, that means you have a good balance. If you're the kind of person who, when you're sitting on the couch watching TV, you get that text message and you look at it and go, how dare they text me when I'm not at work? Or out of principle, I'm not going to respond because I'm not at work. That implies you don't love your job, or that you don't have a good relationship with your coworkers, and something needs to change. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying, why put yourself in a situation where that's the relationship you have with your coworkers and your company? So I think this is a great 1 minute hack, and I'm looking forward to getting some feedback from our employees, the employees and the listeners that feel passionately about this subject one way or another.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.